the thing is the more people pay you, the more invested they're going to be. Customer complaints go down. I mean, there's so many reasons why charging higher rate, and not to mention the fact that, man, what are you in business for? If not to have a profitable, successful business that gives you financial margin in your life so that you can actually live the life that you were called to live.
This is the L3 Leadership Podcast, episode number 212. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the L3 Leadership Podcast. My name is Doug Smith, and I am your host. I hope you're doing well. In today's episode, you'll hear an interview that I had with Cliff Ravenscraft. Cliff is a thought leader that I've followed for a long time and absolutely love his content. In fact, I love his content so much that I signed up for his Next Level workshop this past October and had the opportunity to spend a day and a half at his house and learn from him. And it's called the Next Level Workshop. And in the workshop, he teaches you how to grow a profitable online business. And I learned principles that I could execute immediately in the workshop, and also that I believe will be able to take my business to the next level. I also grew significantly in confidence through a few exercises that Cliff had us go through, and we talk a little bit about that in the interview, but the exercises really had an impact and helped transform some beliefs that I needed transformed. And so I knew after the workshop I had to ask him if he'd jump on the podcast, and I'm so honored that he said yes. And so before we dive into the interview, let me just tell you a little bit about Cliff in case you're unfamiliar with him. In December of 2005, he began podcasting as a hobby way before it was cool, and he actually started podcasting about the show Lost, and the podcast absolutely blew up. He had a global audience listening every week, and it really gave him a passion for making a difference through creating content, specifically through the podcasts that he was creating. And so a year later, he launched the Podcast Answer Man brand, where he invested more than a decade helping tens of thousands of individuals and organizations successfully launch a podcast through one-on-one coaching and online courses. In fact, if you were to look over the top 100 podcasts in the business category of iTunes, more than 50 of those shows were created by clients who have been trained by Cliff, which is just unbelievable. Today, Cliff focuses on his role as a business mentor, a life coach. He mentors coaches, consultants, and thought leaders through the transition from their unfulfilling day job to their own responsible and profitable online business so they can live the life of their dreams and do the work they feel most called to do in this world. And I'm so glad he's focused on that. It's made an impact on my life, certainly. And so if you want to learn more about Cliff and his content and everything that he offers, you can go to cliffravenscraft.com. In the interview, you'll hear Cliff talk about his entrepreneurship journey, mastermind groups and why everyone needs to be in one, pricing and how to price yourself in business, and so much more. If you're a business owner or an entrepreneur or have an online business, you have to listen to this episode. There's so much wisdom in it, and you're going to absolutely love it. But before we dive into the interview, just a few announcements. I am so fired up to let you know that we are hosting our first annual L3 One-Day Leadership Conference on Friday, March 15th, 2019 at the Marriott in Cranberry Township, just 20 minutes outside of the city of Pittsburgh. Our keynote speakers are going to be Matt Keller, the pastor of Next Level Church, Laura Ellsworth, who is the partner in charge of Global Community Services Initiatives at Jones Day, Dr. Chris Howard, the president of Robert Morris University, and Salim Gubril, who is the executive director of the Pittsburgh Promise. It is going to be an incredible event. You do not want to miss it. And if you want to learn more about the conference and how you can register, you can go to l3oneday.com. Again, that's l3oneday.com. I really want to encourage you to plan on attending and plan on bringing your team. It will really help you guys go to the next level, both individually in your leadership journey and as a team and as an organization. I also want to thank our sponsor, Alex Dulandon. Alex is a full-time realtor with Keller Williams Realty, and if you are looking to buy or sell a house in Pittsburgh, Alex is your guy. He's a member and a supporter of L3 Leadership and would love to have an opportunity to connect with you. You can learn more about Alex at pittsburghpropertyshowcase.com. And with that being said, let's dive right into the interview with Cliff. Enjoy, and I'll be back at the end with a few announcements. Hey, Cliff, thank you so much for being willing to do this interview. And why don't we just start off with you just telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, goodness. Thanks, Doug. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft. I am a business mentor and life coach, and I guess you could even say motivational speaker. And my greatest passion right now is helping people who have lived a lifetime as an employee escape their soul-sucking day jobs and transition into their own profitable online business so that they can be free to pursue the work they feel most called to do in this world. And more than anything, I love helping people become more of who they were created to be.
Can you just briefly summarize? So you started teaching people to podcast, and that created this online business that helped you be financially secure. Can you just talk a little bit about the finances, maybe just for a minute? And then I want to talk about something radical that you've done in the past year and a half, 2 years, that I think will really excite people.
Sure. The finances is a fun story. So first of all, I found Dave Ramsey probably 2004, 2005. Stephanie and I became completely 100% debt-free in February 2007. Yes, February 2007. Now that's a year and a half after it's about a year after we've already been podcasting as a hobby on the side. So February 2007 is when my wife and I become debt-free except for our home mortgage. And that's about the time I said, I'd love to leave my day job. And so in September of 2007, I made the decision to leave the day job. My wife was completely on board. In fact, it was her idea. And the thing is I was making at the time, and of course, salaries everywhere are different, but the cost of living in Kentucky is not too high. And at the time, I was making $87,000 a year plus some amazing benefits. And there were opportunities for lots of commissions on top of that. So I was making a lot of income, but we had just become debt free. I mean, we'd lived most of our marriage up to that point, being like in debt to our eyeballs, more, it was insane. So I ended up leaving my career in insurance as an insurance agent, and January 1st, 2008, I'm full-time self-employed. I have no experience running a business. I have no idea what I don't even know. And I had lived a lifetime as an employee. So I had this mindset of an employee that, man, who makes more than $30 an hour? I mean, sure, some people, but you've gone to college and you got major degrees and all kinds of designations and all this other stuff. I didn't have that stuff. So here I was. Oh, and I had some other crazy beliefs, by the way, Doug. I know one of your questions that you want to ask me later is what's a belief that you used to have that you had to change? There were a couple that I had. So first, I used to believe that you had to work hard to earn money. The harder you work, the more money you should earn. I had that belief firmly planted in my brain. Another belief that I had is the more you hate the work that you do, the more you should get paid to do it. And that was backed up by, the opportunities that existed in other places of employment prior to being an insurance agent. People would say, hey, we need some people to work on the weekend. Anybody interested? Nobody volunteered. They said, well, we'll pay you time and a half if you do it. See, the more you hate the idea of what you're doing, the more you get paid. It was reinforced my entire life. So I had all these beliefs about money and what it takes for you to earn it. And I also have a belief back then, and I still have this belief today, that if you take money from somebody that you didn't earn, it's called stealing, and stealing is bad. So I have not changed that belief. I still have that one. So the thing is here I was as an insurance agent. Now I'm, quite frankly, oftentimes getting paid to do things that aren't the funnest. They're not, and it is hard work dealing with this and the stress of how many clients we had versus the number of employees we had in our agency. It was extremely stressful and difficult, the work that I was doing. And I had no problem getting paid well to do it as an insurance agent. But here I was as a hobbyist leading, doing all this podcasting. Quite frankly, in my geographic area, for me to have an opportunity to talk to somebody face-to-face about podcasting, they would be interested in about 10 or 15 minutes of what I had to say. And after that, they're like, okay, Cliff, let's talk about something else. How about those Broncos? Or how about it's like, I don't know anything about sports. And it's clear that they're not interested in hearing me talk about podcasting. So, okay, I'll go somewhere else and be off by myself just because, well, I prefer it that way. Nobody wants to hear Cliff talk about podcasting, right? So I had nobody to talk to. And here I am now as a full-time self-employed business owner, and I'm expecting to charge people $50 an hour for me to have the privilege and honor of talking to them about something I love more than anything else. And so it was crazy. And it's like, how much do I charge? Okay, it's $50 an hour. Let's start there. That's more than I've ever dreamed of making as an employee my entire life. $50 an hour. And then it's time to send invoices, and I feel guilty sending an invoice to somebody. Why? Because I feel guilty for stealing money. And why did I feel like I was stealing money? Because I didn't earn it. Why didn't I feel like I was earning it? Well, because it wasn't hard. This was gosh, you could ask me 15, 20, 30 questions about podcasting. I guarantee you it will not be hard for me to answer. And I'm going to love it. And because I loved it and it was so easy, I didn't feel like I was earning money because of my old belief system. And as a result of that, what happened was it was difficult for me to sell my products and services because, well, quite frankly, I wasn't charging enough, which communicated to others that I didn't have very much value in what I was doing. I didn't realize it at the time that low prices communicate low confidence in what you do. The thing is I had great confidence in what I offered, just didn't understand the value to others of what I had to offer. So I had a lack of confidence in my value, which made it very difficult for me to land clients. And and when I landed clients, quite frankly, I wasn't making enough. Even if I worked 30 hours a week one-on-one with people at $50 an hour, it wasn't enough to pay all of the bills. And I was not getting 30 hours a week worth of work. So what I can tell you is that first year in business, January through December 2008, I worked 7 days a week, every week, without a single day off for the first 9 months. And after 9 months, I started taking Sundays off, and I increased the number of hours the other 6 days of the week. And at the end of my first year, I made a total of $11,000 net income.
Wow.
Now, the business was profitable. The business paid for health insurance benefits. That was a business expense. So the family had health insurance. The business paid for a CPA to do our taxes because I certainly had no idea what I was doing. The business paid for all of the overhead expenses of our business and all that stuff. It just didn't pay me a paycheck until October, of 2017. And if you add up October, November, December of 2017, my net income was $11,000. And to celebrate my first year in business and being quote unquote profitable, I decided to do a 24-hour nonstop marathon. And on the 23rd and a half hour, I started having major gut pains. Now, what I want to tell you is I want you to imagine somebody's working 12 to 16, sometimes 18 hours a day, practically every single day of the week, nonstop for an entire year. I was not taking care of myself physically. I was not fit. I mean, literally, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd have breakfast, I'd go down, I'd work. I'd come up, get lunch, I'd go down, work. I'd go upstairs, have dinner, I'd go down and work. I'd work until 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd go to bed, and I'd get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning the next day and do it all over again. Every day, 7 days a week for 9 months without a day off. At the end of 2008, I weighed 272 pounds. I was getting very close to 300 pounds. And 23 and a half hours into this 24-hour marathon, I started experiencing major gut pains. Like somebody was stabbing me with an ice pick in the front and the back. And I finished the marathon because, of course, that's what you do. You finish what you started. And I went to bed, but I couldn't lay down. There was no way to lay down that I didn't feel like I was about ready to die. So my wife takes me to the hospital, and it turns out I had massive gallstones. And there's a whole scenario I could tell you about. It'd be way too boring. But just to say this, there was a bunch of mix-ups that happened in the hospital, and I literally almost died.
Wow.
So that's the financial side of the first year. Now, I will tell you that I determined after that things had to change. I can tell you that after I got out of the hospital, I started taking my health and fitness seriously. I determined that I was going to start studying people who were successful in business. I started really getting heavily involved in personal growth and development, personal self-help kind of materials, Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Think and Grow Rich, The Strangest Secret. Dan Miller's 48 Days to the Work You Love. I mean, just anything I could get my hands on. Anything that was personal development, professional development, I started studying it like crazy. And as a result of that, I was able to slowly start increasing my rates and the more I increased my rates, the more successful I became. The more successful I became, the more confident I became. I started shifting my mindset and my beliefs as a result of the materials I was studying. And then by October 2010, I learned about, and I had heard enough about this thing called the mastermind principle that I decided to hire, or to not hire. One of my clients hired me. His name is Pat Flynn. He says, Cliff, I've been trying to launch a podcast for years and I've just never been able to pull it off. I heard you're the guy to talk to do this. And I said, yeah. And so we worked together. I helped him get his podcast launch called Smart Passive Income. And just through our relationship, through our one-on-one working together, I said, man, you and I have a lot of similar passions. We have a similar focus for wanting to grow personally and professionally. You and I are reading a lot of the same materials, and we just had this great conversation about the mastermind principle that we're learning about. How about you and I launch one together? And in October 2010, Pat and I started what's called today the Green Room Mastermind, which is now a group of 6 men, myself, Pat Flynn, Michael Stelzner from Social Media Examiner, Ray Edwards, Leslie Samuel, and Mark Mason. And the 6 of us have been meeting every single week since October 2010. And my life, well, let's just say this, every single area of my life, my success, abundance, love, every area of my life, financially, fitness-wise, every area of my life is exponentially grown since October 2010.
So for those listening, we do mastermind groups here at L3. I'm just curious, what would your advice and encouragement be to them about finding a mastermind group and getting in one?
Get in one today. I can tell you right now that if you've heard the stats, this is a business podcast. I'm sure you've probably mentioned these stats, and if not, your audience has heard these stats. But if you want to go out and start a business, 50% of everyone who launches a business will fail within the end of the first year. 80% of every person, 80 out of every 100 people who launch a business will fail within 5 years. 96% or 96, let's just put it this way, nearly every single person who launches a business will fail within 10 years. And what that means is that only 4 out of every 100 people at the end of a decade will still have a business. That doesn't mean they're successful, and it doesn't mean they're profitable. It just means they haven't thrown in the towel yet. And what I can tell you is the biggest cause, there's lots of causes for that, and we could have an entire podcast episode about the many causes for those failures. But one of the greatest causes, and a lot of the other causes have as their root cause, is isolation. We've all heard it's lonely at the top, and there's no more true statement to that than being a self-employed business owner, especially if you're working from home, or you basically you start carrying the weight of the entire world on your own shoulders. Even if you don't have employees, it's your wife, your kids. I mean, as an employee, you go into work, and as long as you show up, it doesn't matter if you actually are good at your job. Most of the time, I mean, it does over time. I mean, eventually you're going to lose your job, but you just go get another one, right? So as an employee, you just check in and check out, and you don't have to worry. There's no anxiety. The paycheck is there, right?
Yeah.
See, but at the one who is the business owner, the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and it's like every decision you make will impact whether or not you get paid, or if you have employees or team members or other people, whether or not they get paid. But certainly, for me, I had a stay-at-home wife and stay-at-home mom and 3 young kids, and man, that was a lot of stress to carry on my shoulders. And all of a sudden, I'm alone, and I don't even know what I don't know. That so much of what I experienced in 2008 and even the early part of 2009 could have been avoided if I would have had a mastermind group back then. And I can say this because I today facilitate mastermind groups for other people. And there are people who literally start with no online following, no social media presence, no content created online. They literally are absolutely unknown to the outside world. And I've been able to see those people succeed and achieve what took me 4 to 6 years to achieve. I've been able to help people achieve that within 90 days. Sometimes it takes as much as 3 to 6 months, but certainly they don't end up in the hospital. They're not working around the clock like I did.
Yeah. Can you talk to those listening about your mastermind groups? I think it's an awesome opportunity. So for an opportunity to be in your mastermind group, how can people find out about that?
Well, mine is called the Next Level Mastermind, and it's specifically geared for people who are on the journey of full-time self-employment. So to be eligible for the Next Level Mastermind, you have to either already be full-time self-employed, and we have people who are in the group who have been in business for themselves, full-time self-employed for 30 plus years. However, if you've been full-time self-employed for 6 months, that's perfectly fine. However, if you happen to have a day job and a desire and dream to become full-time self-employed, there are two stipulations. Number one, you have to have a valid business model and a validated business model. That means that you have products and services that you offer that people have paid for, and they're happy to have done so. So if you have a day job, you can't just have a desire to leave the day job and say, "Hey, can you help me figure out what business I need to create?" No, there's other products and services for that. But if you have a day job and you already have a product or service that people are happily paying money for, then the second requirement is that you have to have a desire and goal and be committed to leaving the day job and becoming full-time self-employed within 12 to 18 months. And so far, every single person who has joined, who had the day job, is definitely right on target. And I just finished a case study with somebody who, let me tell you, it's fun. This guy named Dan in Dunedin, New Zealand. He is a friend of mine that I met when I went to New Zealand to do an opening keynote for the Asia Pacific Podcast Conference. And when he heard about the Next Level Mastermind, he's like, "I want to be a part of Cliff's Mastermind." Here's the deal. He was an IT consultant as a day job, and his employer would send him around to local businesses, and he would actually fix their IT equipment. And it was a steady job, and is definitely something that, it could be dependable, but he definitely felt called to more and wanted to do more. And for the past 5 years, he had 2 clients as a side business. These were clients who had WordPress websites with in excess of 1 million views on their websites per month. And he was the person that they hired, 2 clients that hired him to keep his business or to keep their websites up and running all the time, 24 hours a day. And it was extremely well paid, so much so that these 2 clients that he worked with as a side business generated him the same amount of money as his 40-hour-a-week day job.
Wow.
And so when he heard about the Next Level Mastermind, he heard about those requirements, he's like, "Well, I've thought about the idea of going full-time, but the risk of leaving my day job, and what if I lose one of these 2 clients? Sure, I've had them for 5 years, but I just don't know. That scares me to death." But he applied for the Next Level Mastermind because I'm willing to commit 12 to 18 months. I think it might be possible. Well, fast forward to just a few weeks later, he's in the hot seat, and I started asking him some questions. And through our conversation, he actually came to the conclusion himself. I didn't say anything. I just asked questions. But he realized very quickly that the difference in the amount that he was getting paid per hour from his side business, when compared to the amount per hour that he was getting as an employee, he realized that he was actually paying his employer lots of money for the privilege of keeping his day job.
Wow.
And the fact is that if he freed up 40 hours a week, that would be 40, just imagine 40 hours a week to do nothing more than just to find one more client. And we had some other conversations conversations of things there in that hot seat. But in that one hot seat, he made the decision to talk to his wife. His wife was completely on board. And just a couple weeks later, he's full-time self-employed. Now get this. He had 2 clients that he had for 5 years. His greatest fear was losing one of them and then all of a sudden being in a tough financial spot. Well, his second fear, his greatest fear was losing one of the 2 clients he had. His second fear was that he said he sucked at sales, marketing himself and his business. And he had no idea how to do that effectively. These clients that he had for 5 years kind of just landed in his lap. And I said, "Hey, the Next Level Mastermind has some of the best salespeople in the world, myself included, if I may be so humbled to say so." And so not only did he leave his day job But within 6 months, he went from 2 clients with, and let me just say, the amount that these businesses paid him, these individual clients paid him, this is high end. We're talking major monthly contracts for him to keep their 1 million plus visitor websites up and running. He went from 2 clients within 6 months to 9. Wow. He tripled his income in 6 months and has already hired his first full-time employee, who happens to be a very good friend of his, who is the best at what he does, even better at some things than he is, wow, which only brings more value that he brings to the table. And now his friend is like sending him text messages all day. Man, dude, are you sure it's okay if I sleep in? And he's like, yeah, dude, we're totally free here. This isn't like your day job that you had before. And he's like, he's an employee, but he has lots of the benefits of a self-employed business owner as well. Yeah, and so I love this.
Yeah, and that would have never happened had he not jumped in your mastermind. And yeah, can you talk about the importance of investing in yourself? So there's well, I guess depending on how you view things, a significant investment to be in your mastermind group. But I mean, it doesn't look so significant to this guy now that he made it and now the results of being in a mastermind. So can you talk to someone who's on the fence of, do I need to invest in myself? Do I need to pay the cost to be around people like Cliff Ravenscraft?
Well, to be around Cliff Ravenscraft, you'd have to pay the cost. Unfortunately, I mean, you could have got me for free, 10, 12 years ago. Because guess what? I had lots of free time on my hand. I have lots of free time on my hand today, but that margin is mostly spent with my wife and my kids, and a very select few people that I do still today invest in for free. I could tell you a story sometime about James from Planet Fitness if you want, but it's a fun story. But here's what I can tell you is, to work with me, it's $1,000 per month to be in the Next Level Mastermind. And that's $12,000 a year. So if you think about this, that's a significant investment. And by the way, not everybody is in a place where they can afford it. And the Next Level Mastermind isn't for everyone. In fact, not everybody who applies do I approve. But for those who have the margin and the resources to be able to leverage the advice and wisdom that's given, the average person who joins the Next Level Mastermind doubles or triples their income within 12 months, which is way more than $12,000 additional per year. And there's a handful of people who, as a result of joining the Next Level Mastermind, within a couple months, they have created a brand new product or service that did not exist before, that's generating somewhere between $6,000 to $12,000 additional income above and beyond what they were making before, that did not exist at all. So would you pay $12,000 to be able to come up with something you wouldn't have come up with any other way, that generates you an extra $12,000 per month? So it is definitely an investment, and it's one that I feel confident that people get a return on. In fact, every single person has gotten a massive return like that within the Next Level Mastermind. And that's why I say that you can apply. And the crazy thing I say about this, Doug, is I try not to discourage people from applying, because there have been people who applied and they're like, I'm sorry I'm wasting your time. I realize I probably am not going to be a good fit for your mastermind. And I ask them some questions, and I can just tell that, man, they have a side business. They still have the day job, but they have a side business, and they have a great product. They have a great track record of selling that product, and their clients love them, but they've got some stuff inside of their head that's holding them back. And as a result of that, they believe there's just no way this could ever happen. And so they're thinking, I am totally wasting your time by applying for your mastermind. I'm so sorry, but I figured, you don't know unless you try. And it became clear. It's like, dude, if you only knew, I created the mastermind group for you. Yes, there's no doubt in my mind. Your first hot seat, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and your life is going to change. I'm convinced of it. You're in. If you ask me whatever questions you want, and make sure it's a good fit for you. But dude, here's my invitation. Come join. But there are other people who are confident. It's like, dude, I'm totally in, man. When do we get started? And like, well, let me ask you some questions. And I'm like, no. There are some things that I've learned to listen for, where people simply, they have an overestimation of what it is that they're doing, and there's just too many red flags. In fact, the biggest red flag is the people who, quite frankly, have an amazing product. They have an amazing track record of selling it. And everything looks great. The only thing is that through conversation, they tell me that their wife is absolutely freaked out about the idea of them leaving the day job, and having the uncertainty of the income that comes with owning your own business. And I'm like, have you had this conversation? No, she just doesn't understand. And I'm just going to wait till I prove it to her. And I'm like, yeah, that's a conversation. I think, if you want, I'd be happy to work with you in a one-on-one mentoring capacity. But right now, if your wife isn't 100% on board and you can convince me that she's on board, you're not a good fit for the next level mastermind. Because here's the thing: you could either have a successful marriage or a successful business. And in your situation, I'm not convinced that you can have both.
That's so good.
And I'm not in the business of helping people break up their marriages.
That's good. I want you to talk to people who struggle with confidence. You talked about they may be the perfect candidate. This is actually, I had the privilege of attending your next level workshop. And one of the things that sold me was you did a whole podcast episode on your podcast about building confidence. And this was, and still is, a huge area, but I felt like you really helped me grow a ton in confidence by taking a personal inventory and a few exercises that you had us go through, even prior to the workshop. Can you just talk to the person struggling? Maybe they're thinking about doing an online business. Maybe they're thinking about starting a podcast, but that insecurity is holding them back. What would you tell them, and what are some practical things they can do to start to build their confidence?
Yeah, well, first of all, understand that you already have value. I mean, the thing is so many times we have this problem where we're comparing ourselves to others. Like, for example, one of the things that I thought of, it's like I want to transition into I want to do over the next 30 years what Tony Robbins has done for the past 30 years. And some people might hear that as like, who does he think he is? Well, I can tell you right now, that was the first thought that came to my mind. Who do I think that I am? Who would want to hear from me? I mean, Tony Robbins is Tony Robbins. I mean, he's already got conferences where 12 to 15,000 people at a time are attending his live events. He's been doing this for 30 years. He's got all of the experience. He's got all the reputation out there. He's got a track record. He's got all of the products. He's got everything that I would ever want to offer, Tony already offers it and does it in a way that far exceeds my experience and my ability. So who am I to think that I could ever do that? And then I go from who do I think I am to asking, well, let me take a moment. Who am I? And what do I have to offer? And let me make a list. Let me create an inventory of what do I bring to the table. Well, let's see here. First of all, I am successfully married for 22 years, and my wife are madly in love with one another, and we love each other more today than we did the day we first met. We have 3 amazing children who are now, let's see here, 13, 17 and 18 years old, and successfully none of them in prison yet. So that's a win, right? They're all respectful young children who are becoming respectful young adults. Not only that, but my wife and I have an experience of running a business together. This isn't just my business. My wife and I have been podcasting together since December 2005. My wife has been a part of this business journey with me. And we've experienced this together. And that's something that that's a value and a benefit that I can talk about, and the importance of having your spouse on the same page. It's not important that your wife work in your business, but it's certainly important that the business becomes the dream, that it helps fuel the dreams, not just of yourself, but your marriage as well and your family as well. So I have that. I actually have the story of successfully not dying. And, in the hospital, I have the success of, I'm a guy who was once 272 pounds, but now I'm in my 180s. So, I'm almost down 100 pounds. I've been working. I'm a guy who all of a sudden, in November 2014, I made a bold commitment to the world. I stated publicly, I'm going to work out 6 days a week, every week for the rest of my life. And for 4 years, I've worked out 6 days a week, every week. And I continue to do so and will for the rest of my life. And then in January of 2018, I made this crazy, bold proclamation. I will never eat a sugary snack again not another sugary snack ever again in my lifetime. And I've not done so. And how do I do these things? I could go on and I have in a podcast episode for 45 minutes about all the experience I shared earlier, my top ranking as an insurance agent. Nobody else can say that. I created an online podcasting course called Podcasting A to Z, which generated nearly $1 million over the course of 8 years. And that's just one stream of income in my business. And by the way, I'm the only person I know of on the internet who has an internet-based business with nearly 800 people who have paid $2,000 to go through a 4-week course with a 100% satisfaction rating. Not a single person I know in existence has that record. So, dude, it's like, who do I think I am to be a motivational speaker? This is who I am. This is who God created me to be. And you know what? Guess what? There are people out there who don't even know who Tony Robbins is, but they hear my voice and they know me. I know that sounds crazy. Who doesn't know who Tony? And then there are people out there that I learned that actually have heard of Tony Robbins, and they think he's a kook, or they think he's crazy, or they can't stand him because in his live events he cusses every other sentence, and some of the way that he teaches, and some of it's just not their thing. And so they will never hear the life transformational techniques, tools, and strategies that Tony Robbins teaches, that I have personally experienced and have radically transformed my life. And they are so in line with what I believe God has gifted us with for us to transform our own lives. And there are people who will only hear that from me. They will never hear it from Tony. So this is who I am. And so this is what I recommend people do. Create an inventory. Instead of saying, who do I think I am? Answer the question. Who are you? And create an inventory.
I love that. And that exercise alone dramatically increased my confidence. So thank you for that. So now someone starts building confidence and they think they have a business idea. Can you talk a little bit about validating business ideas? I think the way you do this is so interesting. Even how you validated the next level workshop that I was a part of. When I heard how you validated it, it blew my mind. And I think just share that because it pumped me up.
Okay, so this is what happens in most people's businesses, especially in online businesses. They're like, I'm going to create a product, all right? They'll create a monthly membership, and that's like, okay, well, how much am I going to charge for it? $39 a month seems like something that anybody will say yes to. All right, now I'm going to have to come up with all kinds of content to put into it. All right, and so they work for, the least I've seen is 6 to 8 weeks working on building a product. Quite frankly, Doug, I've seen people spend months, and I know people who have spent years building a product. Years building a product, but at least months. And then all of a sudden, they create their sales page after the product has been created, and then what they do is they start to market it, and they get a $39 sale. And then they get another $39 sale. And those start trickling in, and woohoo! By the end of their first month, first full 30 days, they've made a total of 7 sales at $39 a piece. Or maybe it's a $749 program, and they sold 5 or 6 of them. That's great. Is that going to help you leave your day job? Heck no, not a chance. And you spent months on this, and then all of a sudden you start getting discouraged, and you feel like, I'm not a good salesperson. I'm not a good marketing. This is a terrible product. Blah, 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 blah. And this is, again, why most businesses, it's another reason why most businesses fail. And yes, the root cause of that is isolation, because you went and you did it all on your own. If you were in a group of other people who had gone before you, you would have known not to create your product that way. Instead, you would have validated it first. So Here's what I recommend. So real quickly, this is what I suggest for some people, and then I'll talk about how I created the next level workshop and I validated it. So most people, they want to create a 4-week course that they charge $1,000 for, right? So again, most people will spend, 3 to 6 months working on building all of the material inside of that course and then try to market it. Well, you don't even know if anybody will pay for it yet. And you're spending all this stuff, all this time. So what I recommend that you do is create a sales page. Start marketing the product before you create it. Okay? So you create a sales page and say, we're going to launch this thing in 4 weeks from now. And here's where you sign up right now. And you've got 4 weeks to try to sell at least 6 to 10 $1,000 spots in your 4-week program. All right. So you got 4 weeks. Can you get anywhere between 4 to 10 people to sign up? If you get 4 people to sign up, you've just received $4,000. If you get 10 people, you've just received $10,000. At least, and if you get 3, 4, 5, 10 people to pay you $1,000 a piece, if there are that many people who will do this, then there is more people out there like them. You have a validated product. You know that this is something that people want and they will pay for. Now, you've sold it. Now what you do is you deliver the course live. So you're making it up as you go. And you're giving people direct access to you. You're going to work your butt off and you're going to serve those people, but you're going to let them know, hey, I am building this for you. I'm going to create this as a lot. We're going to stream this webinar live. I'm going to make the video recording available. I'm going to ask any questions that I didn't cover, that I didn't think to share with you. I'm going to make sure that all of your questions are answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You post them in the discussion forum. I will answer everything. And for 4 weeks, you're going to work your hind end off. But at the end of that 4 weeks, you have now a valid product that people have paid for. And then all of a sudden, did people experience the transformation? Yes. Now you've got testimonials. Now what you know is, I wonder if I should go in and spend a little bit of time re-recording some of those videos in higher quality, filling in the gaps and answering some of the questions that I realized I didn't know that were left out. I'm gonna make a better version of this, higher quality. And now I know this is something that's going to sell. And then you relaunch it after you have the new version 2.0 available. And now you actually are selling and marketing a product that you already know people know that they need and they're willing to pay for. That's how you create a product. So Next Level Workshop is an online event. So here's what I told you. I have this dream of doing for the next 30 years what Tony Robbins has done for the last 30 years. And yes, that includes me hosting stadium events for tens of thousands of people. All right. Now, the thing is let's validate this thing. Let's go and put a date on there and put a sales page up and see if we can sell 10,000 tickets to a stadium. Well, okay, that I could do that. I can tell you right now, I already know that's not a valid product for me yet. So what did I do? I said, well, I've got this training space that I've built in my home. I literally built a training classroom for 14 people in my home. When I built this home, I knew I wanted to do this. So I'm like, I wonder if I can get 14 people to pay $1,000 a piece to come to a live event that had nothing to do with podcasting, where I was going to motivate and encourage them and educate them on what I wish I would have known about launching a business. And before I created any of the sessions or anything like that, I created a sales page. And I made it available for $1,000. Well, here's the thing. I only had 3 weeks to do this, and it was the first time I ever marketed anything like this. And I sold 6 spots. So I made $6,000. I'm like, sweet. All right. So 6 people came here. Now get this. That session was on Friday and Saturday. So it was all day Friday, half day Saturday. The Monday before the first people came to the workshop, I outlined the 10 sessions that I would share with them. On Tuesday, I created the keynote presentations. And on Wednesday, I put the schedule together and I sent it to them and said, here's the schedule of what we're gonna cover. And I literally taught it all live, off the cuff, off the top of my head, using nothing more than the slides that I created on Monday. and people's lives were transformed.
Wow.
And at the end of that, I did a post-workshop survey, and I asked the 6 people who attended, said, knowing that I want to do this again, I have a question for you. How much should I charge? Given that this is going to be limited to no more than 12 to 14 people, it's going to be in the same space. It's going to be exactly what you experienced. How much should I charge? $9.99, $14.99, or $19.99? 5 of them said I would have paid $2,000, and 1 of them said I would have paid $1,500. So I immediately changed the sales page to $2,000, and I've sold that session out several times since.
That's amazing.
And by the way, Doug, you came to the Next Level Workshop. How was your experience?
It was unbelievable. Yeah. And I did pay the $19.99 and I would pay it again in a heartbeat. It was life transforming. And so again, I have to execute on everything I was taught, but if you're listening to this, I can't encourage you enough to take the workshop.
By the way, Abraham Savmora was a part of the Next Level Workshop with you. And Abraham just sent me a text message, or no, an email. And in the email, he sent me a picture of a check, like a bank check. And it was written for $300. And he says, Cliff, remember you told me that I needed to be able to charge at least $300 for 1 hour. And the more I charge, the more people are going to take it upon themselves to work hard to get a return on their investment. Well, at the beginning of your workshop, I didn't believe it was possible. I was convinced that I must charge $300 per hour. And I just want you to know, here's a picture of a check that I just received from my first client who paid me for $300. And he was blown away, excited about what I did for him and his business.
That's amazing. I absolutely love that. So I encourage you to go. And along those lines, can you talk about pricing? So again, there's a perfect example. You encourage someone to charge $300 an hour. Earlier, you talked about the more you've charged, actually, the more customers you've gotten, the busier you've gotten. Can you just talk to people about pricing? Because once they develop their product, I think that's the next barrier that holds them back is, what do I charge? I don't know what I'm worth. And if I do, I don't think it's enough. I know you have a whole journey on this, but what would you tell someone starting off?
You know, I'll tell you what, I will briefly just tell you this. The more you charge, the more success that you're going to have in life. There are so many reasons for this. Just a couple of them that come off the top of my head is the more you charge, the more you're going to sweat with anxiety about how awesome you need to be eligible to charge that rate. And that fear that you're not good enough is a great thing. It's going to compel you to grow. Because I can tell you right now, the first time I went so my pricing journey is I went from $50 an hour to $95. Then I went from $95 to $150. And then I went from $150 to $200. And I quickly made the jump to $300. But I went from $300 per hour to $1,500 per hour. And the very first time I went to $1,500 per hour, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And the first time somebody actually, and people would they prepay me before they even get on a call with me for one-on-one, they have to pay the invoice before the call is scheduled. So I sent an invoice for $1,500 and it was paid immediately. And then we scheduled the call and I'm like, okay, I need to go to work. So I created a pre-call questionnaire, and it's very detailed. And I'm telling you, this person filled out every question I asked, and I studied it like for 2 days, and I did research, and I went so far. If I would have charged $300, I would have said, I'll talk to you then. But because I charged $1,500, I went way overboard. And by the time we had that call, what they wanted to accomplish in that call, we accomplished within 15 minutes because of the work I did ahead of time.
Wow.
But then I also followed it up because I felt compelled because I charged so much. Now, the other thing that I can tell you, just another reason why you'll have success is because back in the day when I had people who paid me, let's just say $95 an hour for my one-on-one, I would give them some advice. They would say, Cliff, this is what I need to do. And I've been trying to do this and I can't seem to figure it out. And then I would say, oh, well, here's what you're doing wrong. Stop doing this and start doing this, this, and this in this exact order. And I gave that advice over and over again. And I would follow up with them. And you know what? They were all still doing the same exact thing. The reason I know is I was listening to their podcast. And they were doing the same stupid stuff over and over again. But man, you charge somebody $1,500 an hour and say, you need to stop doing this and do this, this, and this. Every single person who I've ever charged $1,500 to has immediately, after they got off the phone, said, hold the presses, delete all the episodes we've pre-recorded. We're going to re-record them and do what Cliff said.
Wow.
And boom, off the chart success after that. I could go into way more reasons. The thing is the more people pay you, the more invested they're going to be. Customer complaints go down. I mean, there's so many reasons why charging higher rate. And not to mention the fact that, man, what are you in business for? If not to have a profitable, successful business that gives you financial margin in your life so that you can actually live the life that you were called to live. You know what I do? I'm one of those people. I believe God put us on this earth and that work is actually a gift that God gives to us. And it's a way that we can actually do our greatest ministry in serving others in the world. But I do not believe that God desires any of us to work more than 40, 50, 60 hours a week and not have a life outside of that. I don't think that's what God wants for any of us. I think we should all have more financial margin in our life, and I think we should all have more time freedom in our life so we can spend more time simply relaxing and knowing that He is God.
I love that. I'll just leave this open-ended for time's sake, but any other things that you want to leave entrepreneurs with today?
You know what? Go and pursue the life that God has called you to live. If you are not, here's what I will tell you. If you did not wake up this morning without an alarm clock because you were so freaking excited to start your day, then ask yourself why. What is it that you would need to change in your life? What would you need to start doing in your life? Or what do you need to stop doing in your life that would get you so fired up that tomorrow morning you'd get out of bed without an alarm clock? You were so excited to get started. And then whatever comes to your mind, whatever you need to start doing and stop doing, make a plan to start doing it or make a plan to stop doing it. That's what I would encourage you to do.
I love that. And can you just mention, I know we talked about the Next Level Mastermind, we talked about the Next Level Workshop. How else can people connect with you and what you're doing and offering? Well,
my name is Cliff Ravenscraft. Everything I just mentioned and so much more at cliffravenscraft.com. CliffRavenscraft.com.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Cliff. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all the value you add to people everywhere.
Thank you, Doug, man. It's been a great honor.
Well, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to our interview with Cliff. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. You can find ways to connect with him and links to everything that we discussed in the show notes at l3leadership.org/episode 212. I want to thank our sponsor, Henny Jewelers. They're a jeweler owned by my friend and mentor, John Henny. My wife, Laura, and I got our engagement and wedding rings through Henny Jewelers, and we just think they're an incredible company. Not only do they have great jewelry, but they also invest in people. In fact, they give every engaged couple a book to help them prepare for their marriage, and we just love that. If you're in need of a good jeweler, check out hennyjewelers.com. You can also stay up to date with everything we're doing here at L3 Leadership by signing up for our email list. In fact, when you sign up for our email list on our website, you'll get a free copy of my ebook, Making the Most of Mentoring, which is my step-by-step process for getting and cultivating mentoring relationships with leaders. And I think it'll add a ton of value to your life, so make sure you download that. And as always, I like to end with a quote, and I will quote Craig Groeschel today. Craig said this, he said, "We can make excuses or we can make progress, but we can't make both." I'll say that again. We can make excuses or we can make progress, but we can't make both. Love it. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of L3 Leadership. Laura and I appreciate you so much, and we will talk to you next episode.